Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you from the DeKalb County Library System, and we have another earring tutorial. You know what? I started to skip the earrings this trilogy, but I said, no, gotta have them, got to. And I wanted to, and one of the things that I love to do is make interchangeable things that you can just have one piece that you build on or use in different ways. And today it's going to be an interchangeable ear wire. Can I get that up there so you can see it? So here's my ear wire. I saw something like this for, I think it, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was actually for a pendant. And I thought, that would make a neat ear wire. And we've done this sort of thing for clasps. And I thought, all you have to do, instead of using that and making an S clasp with the clasp with the little hook on each side, just extend it out into an ear wire. And it works beautifully. And not only does it work beautifully, but this part works just like the S clasp does. And ta-da, earrings. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I don't have my glasses on. I can't see what I'm doing. There we go. Isn't that neat? So today we are going to make our own interchangeable ear wires. Oops, get on there. I can't see. I need to put my glasses on and stop being so darn vain. Anyway, we're going to make our own interchangeable ear wires with some very simple earrings that will go on it. Very simple dangles that will go on it. But the big thing is the ear wire itself, and then you can do whatever dangles you want. We're going to do 3 of them. Okay, so let's get started because I'm excited. I want to get these earrings finished so I can start wearing them myself. No, Geneva, that's my sister. You do not get these. I'm keeping them. Okay, hold on just a second while I get down here to my little camera. So this is what we're doing. I gave you a little bit of a glance. So let's start with, this one. Isn't that pretty? Pretty, pretty. And they just, all you do is you want to make your loop big enough to fit over your hook. And then you have a nice earring. Isn't that the neatest thing? I love it. I love things that are versatile. So let's get started. So all we need for this is some artistic wire. In this case, I'm using two sizes of wire, and I'll explain why. Well, I'll explain why now. Because this one bead that I have here has a tiny, tiny, tiny little hole. So I needed 22 or 24 gauge wire with it. I decided to go with 22 gauge wire because otherwise I even marked the little bag that I have it in saying it's a 24 millimeter hole. So I would remember not to try to shove some 20 gauge wire in there and get frustrated. So, but I did try the 22 gauge out and that worked too, barely, but it worked. So I'm using 2 types of artistic wire, 20 gauge and 22 gauge. I'm also using head pins because we're going to make just some very simple dangles for 2 of them. That's very simple. It's just going on a head pin. And we're going to use a couple of little metal embellishments as well. This is going to be easy. That little metal is going in there. This is going to be easy peasy, but let's start with our ear wire. So the first thing we're going to do is take our round nose pliers. I have 4.5 inches of wire here. I don't think I'm going to need it all. I might have to cut a little tiny bit of it off, but it's better to have enough. And I'm pretty sure that's what I used for this one. And I ended up cutting a little off, but that's okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my little 4.5 inches of 20 gauge wire. I'm going to make a teeny, well, first let me cut this flush because it's a little angled down here. I'm going to cut that nice and flush. I don't have enough to hold on to back here. So what I'm going to do is just grab my this little thing. I'm going to turn this down so that when I cut that off, it just drops right down into the well. See that little nub down in there? All right, so what I want to do is take my wire and I'm going to grab the tip of my wire with the very tip of my pliers to make a tiny little loop. Just a little tiny loop. It doesn't have to be very big at all because it's going to be this guy right here and you want your earrings to go hang over it. Now, if you didn't want to make one quite so small, you could also use a jump ring. That'll also extend the length of your earring. But for this one, we're just going to use the earring itself. So anyway, I take the tip of my pliers, grab the tip of my wire, and I just rotate until I have a nice, tiny little loop here. Let's close it completely up. There's my little loop. And you want the back of the tip to meet the wire. You don't want any of it sticking out on the sides or anything like that. So then, one thing I didn't tell you, in addition to your usual pliers that I also didn't tell you about, you're going to need round nose pliers, square pliers, cutters, and a very technical item for shaping. In this case, I'm using an ink pen. And that's so that I can do the little shaping for my ear wire part. Okay, so I've got my little loop here that I wanted to make, and now I need to make the hook. It's a little shepherd's hook. So for that, I'm just going to go down to the very back of my pliers with my wire. Now I have the part that's hanging down on one side facing me. So that's facing me. And I just want the tiniest of space in between the bottom of my loop and my plier barrel. So just a teeny tiny bit of space, not just a fraction of an inch. It's not even measurable, it's so small. I just don't want the loop right up against the barrel. So now I've got that in my pliers, and I want to make sure that I don't get caught back here on this square part because I want it to be nice and round. So now I'm going to take my pliers. Again, the part that's hanging down is facing me, and I'm going to rotate my pliers away from me. And I'm just going to rotate until the loop hits the wire, the long edge of wire, just like so. So now I have my little hook. And now it's time to make this part. And for that, that's where my little technical piece comes in. I'm going to take my ink pen. I'm just going to put it down here, just at the bottom of my loop. And the little loop and the hook part are facing towards me like this. So this is going to be my little loop. The little round part and the hook are facing towards me. And then I'm going to take my pen. I'm not going to put it in there because this part's bigger. And then I'm going to rotate away. But let me show you. So my little hook is facing towards me. I'm putting my ink pen just below the loop. And I'm going to take the long tail and wrap it around my ink pen. Just wrap it around until the long tail touches my hook. And that's that. Then I can take my pencil off and I can shape my loop to the same size that my other one is. So I'm going to squeeze it a little bit so I can get the size the same. And what you can do is put the two of them together like so, and then just shape it so that they're both the same size. I'm just squeezing a little bit because the second one I just made is a little bit bigger than the first one. So just shape that till I have it the size I want. And then see how much more I have? I only need this much. I have a whole 2 inches too much, darn it. But 2 inches is great because I can do something with that. So now what I want to do is shape it into a little curve, just like this one. It's got that little graceful curve here. So let's go ahead and do that. And I just use my fingers for that. Don't need any kind of a tool to do that. You can rest it up against the other earring so that you can get a similar shape. This part is going in your ear, so you just want it to hang the same. So I'm just going to use that as a guide to get about the same shaping. That looks good. And then I'm going to cut it off about the same length as this one. Again, I can put them together and see where I need to cut. Right there. I like to sometimes, if you want to cut it a little longer, just in case, and then you can snip off whatever excess is there. Cut that off. I can use this as a pen, an eye pen later. No big deal. So let's check, see how that looks compared to the other one. Nice, very nice. Now all I have to do is put my little notch right here at the end. Okay, so I'm going to take my pliers. You can use your round or your square pliers. Just grab the very tip of my ear wire and give it a little tweak, just like that. That's it. There's my ear wire. Isn't that awesome? Now, in order to make sure, because I'm using 20 gauge wire, which is quite soft, so in order to make sure that it's nice and strong and it won't get bent out of shape, I take my little dollar store mallet and just give it a little pounding. And what that does is strengthen it so that it's nice and strong. And then the other thing that you want to do is take a nail file or emery board and just round out these edges so that you're not sticking really sharp wire in your ear. So you can just round out those edges with a nail file or an emery board so it's nice and comfortable to go in your ear. And there are your ear wires. Isn't that awesome? They are so neat. I love them. Yay. Okay, so I'm gonna make this little loop a tiny bit smaller, just a tiny bit smaller. This one looks a little smaller. So I'm just gonna squeeze that lip a tiny bit so it's a little nubbier. That looks better. Nice. All right, now we're ready to put some actual dangles on my ear wires. So let's make some of those. Oh, speaking of using, excuse me, a swelling wrong, emery board or a nail file, there are tools that you can use to round out the edges, but I bought one once and it didn't really do that great a job, I didn't think. So I just use my emery board, my nail file. You can use some sandpaper or whatever to round it out. Oh, sorry. I swallowed wrong. I don't know what happened. I am so sorry. That's awful. Anyway, time to make some earrings. Let's do it. Oh, I might have to go get some water. But anyway, let's do this one first, since it's just sitting out there beckoning me. I have these really pretty little beads, and I've just been kind of holding on to them to see what I can do with them. Didn't have very many, so what do? You make earrings, of course. This is going to be the simplest thing ever. All I need is a long head pin. In this case, this is about 2 1/4 inches. Nice long head pin. Head pin is the one with the flat bottom on it. Take one bead, put it on. When I originally started to do this, just to give you a little background, I started to do these separate and dangle them like this one. And then I thought I was trying to see if I liked this little thing to go on top of this one. So I just put them all on the pin to see what it looked like. And I absolutely fell in love with that. Isn't that beautiful? So I said, why do anything different? So we're just going to take our bead, feed it on my pin, put my little spacer embellishment. Isn't that pretty? And my other bead on top. Now, I was wrestling with myself. Do I want it this way on the ear wire, like that? Or do I want it like that? Which way is better? Oh, I like them both, really. Oh, they're both pretty. Well, darn. Well, I already did this one, so I'm committing to that. So now the one thing that I noticed in regard to this beautiful, beautiful bead is it has a little white spot at the top. Now there's nothing wrong with that. I could have put a cap on it like this, which I started to do, but then I decided against it because I said, well, I'll just put a little cap on top with my pin because I wanted to make this very, very easy for everybody. So all I'm going to do here, another thing is, I have people that say, how do you know how much to cut off before you make your loop? Well, I'm going to show you an easy way to avoid having to guess how much you need to cut off. So all I'm going to do here is bend my pin back like so, out to the side. My loop needs to be big enough to fit over the loop that's on my ear wire. And the one that I did here, the way I can figure out how far down to go is to slide this one on. So now I know how far down to go on my pliers in order to get the same size loop that works with my ear wire. So that just slide that down on my pliers. Take the tail of my ear wire, or of my wire, my pin, over the top of my ear wire. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that your pliers are resting against the bead because you want this loop to be as close as possible to the bead. So I'm going to bring my wire over the top of my pliers until I can't go any further because the bead is in the way. Then I'm going to open up my pliers without taking the wire off. I'm going to rotate back and then bring that wire in between the pliers and the top of the bead. So it's in between the pliers and the top of the bead. In order to keep that from shifting around, I'm just going to hold on to it with my finger and just bring that under until I can't go any further. Then again, without taking my beads off, I'm going to open my pliers, rotate back, clamp back down. My pliers are on top horizontal to the bead, and the beads are vertical. So this is what I have. I'm going to bring the wire between the beads and the pliers. So now I have a loop. There's my loop. Now I'm going to give this one little wrap, but if you were just doing a simple loop here, you would just take your pliers and cut off right inside the loop. And that would give you your simple loop. You wouldn't have to worry about how much you needed in order to have enough for your loop without having any excess. That's the easiest way to do it. Okay, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of a wrap here just to cover up some of that little white spot on top. So I'm going to grab the loop with my pliers. I'm going to rotate this down because I think I have a little more space down here than I want. So I'm going to rotate that down a little bit so that it's closer to my bead. Yeah. And now I'm going to wrap. So I'm going to take the tail of my head pin and I'm going to wrap it around. And because you can't see what I'm doing if I do it with my fingers, I'm going to use these pliers. I'm going to take the pliers and I'm just going to guide that little tail around at the base of my loop, like so, until I have a little wrap right on top of my bead. So it's in between the bead and the loop. See that little wrap around there? And the rest of this little tiny see if I can get this clearer. This little teeny tiny edge here that's sticking out. I'm going to push that down. Let's push it down against the rest of the wires. Nice and easy. Just take your time doing that. It doesn't have to be a rush job. Just want to get it snugged up against the rest of the wires so it won't scratch my ear every time it swings against them. There. Nice and neat and tidy. And there we have it. And that will hang nicely on my ear wire. Pretty. Isn't that pretty? Love it. Okay, let's go on to the second one. This one's going to be a little bit more of a challenge, and I'll tell you why. I had this lovely Unikite bead that broke, and I was just devastated. I thought, darn it, now what? And I've just been hanging on to it to see what I could do. And what I decided to do is just kind of do a very free form wrap because it didn't break the same length. And so I decided to do a free form wrap. I built up the small one so that it will hopefully look about the same as the longer one because I'm not proficient with drilling or anything like that. So I didn't want to try to cut it and risk ruining it completely and not being able to do anything with it. So what I'm going to do is just give this a messy wrap around the top. I have a nice bead that I'm dangling at the bottom. This bead was also a challenge because it has a teeny tiny little, it's drilled so tiny, you can hardly see it. Can you see that little tiny hole in there? And I have to use 22 gauge wire or 24 gauge, 22, 24. I discovered just recently that it'll actually take 22 gauge wire, but 20 gauge wire, no, it just rejects it. Won't work. So I'm going to take a piece of 22 gauge wire. I've got 4.5 inches, and what I'm going to do, one of the reasons I decided to do this was because I was going to put this on a pin as well. But most head pins and eye pins are about 20 gauge, so it wouldn't fit. So I have to make my own head pin. That's what I'm going to do. So I've got 4.5 inches of 22 gauge wire. Might be too much, hopefully not too much. I think that's what I have here, about 4 to 4.5 inches, and I want to make sure I have enough. So what we're going to do is make a knotted head pin. Very easy. All you do is take your 4.5 inches of 22 gauge wire. In this case, I'm going to go down close to the tip of my pliers because I don't need too big a hole. And I'm going to make a loop. So I've got my loop, and I'm going to continue wrapping 1.5 more times. So I have a 2.5 loop wrap. So there we are. So I've got 2.5 wraps here. And then I'm going to take my wire, I'm going to fold it up to the top of my other wraps. I'm going to just bring it around because I need to feed the tip of this back through the loops. So I need to shape it a little bit, bring it around, and now I need to bring this tip back through my little loop. And now I'm going to make a knot. And the way I'm going to do that is to push this, pull this through the loop. I find it's easier to use a push and pull motion instead of trying to just pull this through. So I'm pulling a little bit on the tail, and I'm pulling also on the knot in order to make this tail part that's looped a little smaller. I know it's hard to see with my fingers, which is why I'm over explaining what I'm doing. So I'm pushing and I'm pulling until I get my knot as small as I want it. So I just pull and I push and I adjust until I have a little knot. And there it is. There's my little knot. And that's going to go on the bottom of my bead. Now, this is very unforgiving. And this 22 gauge wire can get very easily bent up. This is not going to take it. It's going to say, nope, that's too bent. You're going to have to straighten it out. So I'm just going to take my pliers and I'm going to straighten out any little kinks that I have in there so that my little bead will cooperate and go on the wire. Let's just straighten that out. See if that's enough. Find that teeny tiny little opening. There it is. And feed that on. Very nice. And there's my little knot on the bottom of my bead. Isn't that cute? Excellent. Look at how much I had left over. Virginia, you keep doing that. Anyway, now I just want a tiny little wrap on the top to link to my other bead. So let's go ahead, bend my wire back, grab my pliers. I just need a small loop, so I'm going to go about a quarter of the way down my pliers. And I'm going to bring that around over my pliers to wrap it down the side until it can't go any further because the bead's in the way. I'm going to hold my bead, and without taking the wire out, I'm going to open my pliers up, rotate back, and clamp back down. So my pliers are horizontal on top, and my bead is vertical down to the side. Then I'm going to bring the tail of my wire up and in between the bead and the pliers until I have a loop. So now I'm going to stop because I think I'm going to link this while that's open to the other bead. And let's go on to the more challenging Unikite piece, because now I have to create this little wrap on top so that my beads look almost the same size or as close as I can get. So I've got 5 inches of 20 gauge wire here. I'm just going to make a very simple wrapped loop on the bottom. So I'm going to give myself about 1 inch of wire. I don't want too much of a wrap because I don't want a great big opening and a lot of space here. I just want enough to have a nice little dangle. So I'm going to give myself that 1.5 inches of wire, 1.25 inches, bend it back, grab my round nose pliers, go about, let's see how big I made this on this one. Not too far down, about 1/4 of the way down my pliers, like so. And I'm going to take that short tail, wrap it over my pliers and down the side. Before I go any further, I'm going to check and make sure they look about the same. Yes, they do. Slide my pliers back in. This is the way it was before. I'm going to, without act like I hadn't taken the wire out. I'm going to rotate back until the pliers are on top of my wire again. Horizontal one way, vertical the other with the wire, and I'm going to bring my wire around until I have a loop. So there's my loop. And then I just want a small wrap. I just did 2 wraps on this one, and that's all I'm going to give myself on this one as well. So just wrap around under the loop 1 time and a 2nd time, and making sure my little wraps are close together. Okay. And clip off that tail. Nice and close. Flip it off. I had enough that I could hold on to it and it wouldn't fly anywhere. And then push that little end down so it won't snag on anything. And now let's introduce my bead. Slide my bead on. And now comes the fun part, doing my little wrap here. So what I'm going to do is bend my wire back again. Now, what I did for this one was leave a little space between the bead and my wire so I could wrap further away and all the way down in order to give the illusion that this half of the bead is a little bit bigger. That's a lot to try to explain. I should have probably showed it to you, but I didn't. Shame on me. Okay, so now I need to make a loop again that's big enough to go over my ear wire. So let's see what I have. All the way down to just past the halfway point on my pliers. Okay. Bring that tail over my pliers and down to the side. And let me just check, see what it looks like. That looks about right. Slide my pliers back in and bring that tail under and in between my bead and my pliers. And if I wanted to check again, just to make sure, yes, that easily goes over my ear wire hook. So now we're going to wrap it. So I'm going to wrap one time between the pliers and my bead, and then I'm going to continue to wrap because I want to have the same effect that I have on this one. So I'm going to continue to wrap, but this time I'm not wrapping on air like I did the other one. I'm actually going to be wrapping around the bead itself. So I'm just wrapping and wrapping until I have no wire left. Just wrapping down the side of my bead. And then when I get to where I can't wrap anymore, I'm going to take that little end, I'm going to curve it under so it's about the same shape as the bead, the same curvature. And I'm going to push that end down just under the other wraps. There we go. And then I can make some adjustments with my fingers. Let's see what we have here. Oh my gosh, look at that. Not too shabby. That is not bad at all. And I can make some little further adjustments. Squeeze these wires in a little bit so it looks a little bit closer to the other one. Because again, the other one was just wrapped on air to give the illusion of length. Because I really didn't want to lose this Unikite bead. Oh, yes, 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 yes. It worked. Okay, success. All right, so now we're going to link our beads together. Very simple. I'm going to take this long tail of wire. I'm going to feed it inside the closed bead on the closed loop on the other bead. Slide that loop down and snap it right inside the other loop, the open loop. And now I'm going to wrap this closed. So I'm just going to take my pliers, just hold on to the flat part of my loop. Let's get over here where you can see without the bead being in the way. And I'm just going to give it 2 wraps, just like I did on this one, around the bead. Just on top of the bead, give it a tiny little cap and cut it off. All right, just snap that off there. Hold on to that tail so it won't go flying across the room. And then push down that little end. Nice and snug under the other wires. And there is my earring. Ta-da! Earring number 2. I love, love, love. All right, earring number 3 coming up. Again, we are using a head pin. This time, we're not going to wrap around the top like we did this one. I wanted to show you several different things. This time, we're just going to do a simple loop on top. This one I struggled with. I thought, do I want just this piece or do I want this piece? Will this be too much? There's no such thing. So now You need to get a little creative with some of these beads because this has a huge opening. If I tried to, what I could do is make a knot on the bottom like I did this one, and you make a head pin, but I wanted to show you something different. Normally, that's probably what I would have done, but I wanted to show you how to just use a head pin on your dangle. Now, if I tried to use a head pin on this, you can see right now that would just go right through. So that doesn't work. So now we have, let's get another metal embellishment. I've got this cute little cap in antique copper, just like my head pins and my wire for my ear wire. I'm going to feed that on. It's nice and small. Fits right on the bottom. You can hardly tell there's a difference. And guess what? My bead fits right on there. I'm going to flip this around because this is the prettier side. Yeah. So there we got that. Isn't that neat? Then I'm going to just slide on the other one. And I'm going to show you again the easy way to not have to guess how much to cut off. And I don't think I need to cut anything off here. It looks like it's the exact amount that I want because I want a nice big loop so I can make sure that it fits over my ear wire hook. So I'm going to bend it back again right there at the top of my bead. I'm going to check and see how big I made this one. There we go, about halfway down my pliers. Halfway down, clamp down, make sure none of that wire sticking out from between the pliers. I'm going to rotate. Oops, didn't need to do that until I have a nice loop. And make sure it's nicely closed. Just close it up all the way. Here we go. There's my loop, all finished and ready. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my earring number 3. Ooh, a little tight. Just a tiny bit. Well, let's just open that up just a little bit. Not a problem. Roll it back a little, open it up a little, have a little space in there so there's space to open it. Make sure that's closed. Okay, now let's try it. That was scary. There we go. Earring number 3. There it is. So there's my 3rd earring. I would have 3 different ear wires, except that would defeat the entire purpose of showing you interchangeable ear wires. But this is what we have. Oops, there we go. 1, 2, and 3. Isn't that awesome? 1 ear wire, several different earrings. Now, those of you who get kits, I'm going to, I had a class the other day and I gave people choices of wire and everybody took silver and gold. And I thought, okay, silver and gold it is. However, those of you who get kits, you're going to have options. You'll have silver, you'll have gold, you'll have copper. So you can decide, first of all, you can make more than 1 pair of interchangeable ear wires, and then you don't have to have ear wires that are the same color as your pins. You can get a little avant-garde here. That's really nothing. Sorry, I've been watching reruns of Project Runway, and that word comes up, that phrase comes up a lot. So sorry. Anyway, but you can get a little avant-garde here and use silver ear wires with copper metal and embellishments. You don't have to stick to 1 wire. Be creative, be artistic, be whoever you are. And one of the reasons that I was showing that to them was because I had a bracelet that I would show you. Well, it's going to be on a video, but I had a bracelet. No, it's not going to be on a video. That was a live class. Sorry. That was linked with several different colors of wire. We're going to have to do a video about that because I want people to get out of their comfort zone a little bit and see how beautiful you can make things that are unconventional. Unconventional challenge. Sorry, Project Runway on the brain. So anyway, that is our tutorial for the day. Here are all of our earrings. Here are interchangeable ear wires. Those of you who get kits will have the option to make at least 2, maybe even 3, depends on what mood I'm in when I start making these kits tonight. And you will be able to make your own earrings and interchangeable ear wires, because I want you to have lots and lots and lots of options. That's what it's all about. I mean, that's what I like. So that's our video for the day, our tutorial for the day. This is in my face. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll let me and us know how you enjoyed it, or if you enjoyed it, or even if you didn't. Get in touch with me at jewelrygen20@gmail.com. That's JEWELRYGIN20@gmail.com, or at the DeKalb County Library Facebook page, which is facebook.com/DeKalb Library. Send us pictures of what you make. Let us just post some pictures of what you make along with the tutorial. You'll be able to find it on the page. You can post pictures of what you make to show us, hey, look, this is what I did with the video. You can send them to me at the email account, and I'll post them on there if you would rather, but I love to see what you do. I'm just getting back in the live classes, so I have my immediate gratification. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But I also love to see what you guys out there in virtuality land do. I just made that word up, but I would love to see what you do. It makes me very, very happy. And it makes me think maybe I'm doing something right. And I would love your feedback, good, bad, indifferent. I don't care. Feedback, just give it to me. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you didn't like. Let me know what you would like to see. I'm here for you. Okay? So until next time, I hope you have a great week, a great weekend. And until next time, see you later. Bye-bye.